So those of us that are of our experts that are still here, can I invite you to pop your cameras back on if you want to? And I'm going to throw this out to the panel that's come in. Does anybody do introductal probing? And you know, or has anybody been helped? Oh, sorry, wrong question. And yeah, what are the benefits of introductal probing? I'm not sure it's something we tend to do in the UK as optometrists, but maybe Laura, you talked about it, didn't you, in our chat?
Yes, so we do mask and probing, introductal probing. I tend to do all the same thing, all the wonderful presentations today. I do all those things, you know, lifestyle modifications, inflammation control, IPL, thermal expression modalities, all those things. But then, you know, sometimes there's scarring inside the gland, and that's hallmarked by your doing all these things. You're getting maybe some improvements in the meibum, but there's still no flow through some of those glands. And it's particularly hallmarked if there's tenderness overlying those glands that aren't producing when you do the diagnostic expression. And those are cases where I will offer the introductory probing. And I find that it helps. It takes about 8 weeks for the meibomian gland stem cells to wake up. They've been in winter because there's been no place on the shelves to put the meibum. So once you relieve the obstruction, now there's room to produce meibum. It takes about 8 weeks for those factories to get back online. And meanwhile, we're supporting those stem cells with all the above, you know, treating the whole beast.
Okay, thanks. Maybe this would be another one for you, Laura. My internist wants me to start taking diuretics to counteract my high blood pressure. Will drinking lots of water keep the diuretics from exacerbating my dry eye condition?
That's a great question. For high blood pressure management, there are 2 classes of medication that are particularly impactful on dry eye, and it's diuretics and beta blockers. Now, if you're in heart failure and you need the diuretic, absolutely take your diuretic. But there are other classes of blood pressure lowering medication that I would reach for first. Have a discussion with your physician and see if there are alternatives.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm glad you're practicing what you preach. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Laura, for that one. A question possibly for Dr. T now on, if you're there, you talked about various sunglasses. Are polarized sunglasses a choice to consider? I find it hard to see with sunglasses that are dark due to other eye issues.
I'm here, but I can't turn my camera back on. So if you can hear me.
I'm glad you're still here.
Yes. So polarized glasses are great because, as I was saying earlier, a lot of us just like the intensity, but the darkness, the tint of the lens is really a personal choice, because, as I said earlier, the UV blocking is clear. So if you have 199 to 100% UV blocking and you don't like a dark, intense colored lens, then you don't need it. You're getting the coverage that you need with the UV blocking. The rest is just comfort.
Okay.
I'm sorry you can't see me to know I finished talking. Yeah, I don't know. It's still telling me I can't turn my camera on. So that's okay.
Thank you. Anyway, we've just had an additional query about scleral lenses, James. I don't know whether you want to take this one. My scleral lens is used to keep my floppy upper eyelid off the cornea surface. My lens is a hydropeg coated to improve clarity. You mentioned slippery for the upper lid. What's the substance used?
It is the hydropeg coating that makes that slippery surface. So yeah, no, that at the moment is the gold standard in terms of coatings for lenses.
That's great, thank you. We've had several questions about punctal plugs, actually. Any comments on them from our panel? Pro them, against them? Dissolvable ones? How long should they last? I don't know who wants to take that one. Nick?
So we use them. We are very, very careful to make sure we are looking at a true aqueous deficient dry eye. And I'm very cautious of using them in someone where there is sort of an extensive history that alludes towards a sort of manifest Sjogren's syndrome, because it's a multi-system thing, and in the UK they would generally be. We need to make sure they're under a rheumatologist that's assisting. I don't like the intracanalicular punctal plugs, because if you put them in, you can't get them out. I do like the dissolvable plugs that we pop in and then really record the change in symptomatology for the next couple of weeks, and then we wait for the plugs to dissolve, and then the return of the previous symptoms, and that's a good indication then that that they're going to help. And then beyond that, we would go to the removable silicone plugs, but they're placed in and they do tend to remain in situ. So I saw 2 people on Thursday, for example, who had their plugs in for over 12 months. Both are under rheumatology, both are Sjogren's sufferers, and it's really been a great deal of help. They are also using a cyclosporin eye drop, which in the UK, to be covered under NHS costs, needs to come through the hospitalized service because it's particularly expensive, but it is effective.
Okay. Thank you. Question for, oh, I don't know, I'll throw it out there. I'm plagued by my eyelashes becoming loose and sitting on my eyelids, projecting into the eye and causing great irritation. Does dry eye affect loosening eyelashes? Is there anything we can do about it? Laura's nodding.
Yes, I'll take that one. It's common for patients to report short lashes, frequent fallout of lashes. And it's all based on inflammation. We're a clinical trial site for the new Pt.6 medication by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. It's essentially topical lotilaner, which is a insecticide that we use in our veterinary medicine for our furry friends. But it's been reformulated for ophthalmic use, and their phase 2 data just released, and it looks awesome. But because of our observations as a clinical trial site around Pt.6, I'm very impressed by the interaction and the role of Pt.6 and poor eyelash health or anchoring. Those lashes that have the mite they just come out way too easily. There's not enough anchoring of the eyelash root. And when you look at it in a microscope, there's not the proper bulb to the eyelash. So yes, there's absolutely a correlation with dry eye blepharitis and poor lashes. And throwing on eyelash growth serum is not the answer. Please don't do that. That makes the whole thing worse.
Okay. We've had loads and loads of questions in for you, Dr. Gross, about omega-3. I'll try and sort of group them together as best I can, but what are the benefits of taking a fish-based omega-3 versus an algae-based version of omega-3, and bearing in mind the contaminants that could be in fish oil? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, boy, there's so much to share in this regard. You've opened the door now, and I don't want it to be Pandora's box. And I just wanted to comment before I answer your question. I'm so fascinated by all the wonderful people and the various treatments that are used for dry eye. Many of them are to evacuate the meibum and help the glands and the symptoms that are concomitant with that. But of course, what happens next? The glands, if they're still functional, will be producing more meibum. And in order to do that, they need the right raw materials to do so. That is a direct reflection of omega-3 balance in the body. So that's why dry eye, especially meibum, is such a wonderful microcosm of the theory that I tried to offer. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to show all the data. Interestingly, fish oil is not omega-3 therapy. And algae oil can also be a similar problem. When people go and buy over-the-counter products, these things are unregulated, especially in the United States. We don't know what's in them, what form they're in, and so forth. So the proper approach would be to compare a nutraceutical to a pharmaceutical and get it through a physician in the right dose and form. I know that Scope has a product like this, and it is patented. In fact, the only patents that have ever been granted for quality of mibum have been granted to this product. There is no pharmaceutical, there's no anything that actually is proven. And the mechanism of action shown, which is to correct the omega balance in the mibum, to give quality of mibum, which ultimately will help so many of these wonderful people with their patients and with the problems that they have. So it should, again, this is not to replace anything. This is an adjuvant therapy. Everyone eats, nutritional therapy should be part of it. In terms of buying over-the-counter products, they may be contaminated. They may not even have omega-3s in them. These things are not regulated, unfortunately. So we need to look for omega-3 products which are pharmaceutically equivalent. In the States, that would require a certification called CGMP, which is FDA certification of good manufacturing process, so that what's in the product is in the product. The National Science Foundation should also be inspecting the product at its source in the factory. So these are the real omega-3 products. I hate the word fish oil. Omega-3 therapy is what we should be saying, because it's just as good. In fact, as I showed you, you can, through creating an anti-inflammatory response with omega-3s, hit a myriad of diseases. Finally, in answer to the algae question, algae also needs to be purified like anything else. So if you buy a quality algae oil with those specifications that I mentioned, then you'll get that. But it's important to recognize that fish eat algae and plankton. They don't produce EPA and DHA. They get it by eating what's in the ocean. So that is a reflection of the quality of the ocean that they're in. So algae oils, just like fish oils, should be purified and then converted to a pharmaceutically equivalent source or form to get a therapeutic outcome. So I hope that answers your question, or perhaps was too much information, but that's my problem. I have a blabbermouth.
Thank you. I think it answered a lot of the questions that I was about to ask you, so that saved me. And just one question, do we really need a 3-to-1 ratio for EPA to DHA?
This is a really good question. In fact, this is more about dose, perhaps, and form than ratio, although the original study, by the way, there is something I didn't get to. The only study that was ever done that hit tear osmolarity as an endpoint. I know these wonderful practitioners use osmolarity as their screening device. There's only one study that ever used tear osmolarity as an endpoint for a therapeutic outcome, and that was an omega-3 study using a 3-to-1 ratio oil and reesterified triglyceride form. But probably more important is the dosage that overcomes those other things in the diet which interfere with omega balance. And we do have a test. I'm not sure it's available in Britain, but it is FDA approved. It's called the Omega Index test. It's not a blood test. It's a finger stick test. And if you reach 8%, now this measures the amount of omega-3s on cell membranes. When 8% is reached, that cell is no longer inflamed, which is why we get a systemic anti-inflammatory benefit by reaching that therapeutic outcome. So that's probably more reflective on dose and form. And the gentleman, actually Dr. William Harris, who invented the test, has noted that with the average Western diet, it will take between 2 and 3 grams of reesterified, that is the pristine, clean fish form of omega-3, 2 to 3 grams on a daily basis to achieve an 8% or higher omega index, and thus creating omega balance.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think we've probably got time for a couple more, and we've still got quite a few people on the call. So possibly one for Dr. T. I have very runny eyes and makeup makes them worse. Are there any particular brands I should be looking for? What should I do and not be doing in regard to makeup?
So I have a couple of tips on makeup, and the first is always to start with taking it off. So that's the most important part of any beauty routine, is that we get all of it off every night. And I actually have a makeup remover guide. If you went to my website, pamterrio.com/remover, I've done a bit of research on eye safe makeup removers. Off the top of my head, I love Eyes Are the Story. I love microfiber cloths that don't use any chemicals at all. They're just tightly woven cloths that help to remove the makeup. So that's step one of a clean makeup routine. And then I would start with a super eye conscious brand like Eyes Are the Story. There's 2020 Beauty. There's Dr. Perriman's shaking her head, so maybe she has another brand that she loves. Do you love another brand, Laura? You're
Laura,
muted.
you're on mute.
I apologize, Dr. Terrio. People forget that it's about the ingredients and not the brand. Cosmetics they can change the formulation on a dime. If you tolerated something before, they change the formulation, now you can react. So I actually don't recommend any ingredients. We still teach to identify, or any brands, we still teach to identify ingredients. And the main ones are formaldehyde donating preservatives. This includes hydroxymethylglycinate, which is found in many different eye wipes. I think that that's, well, we know that small traces of formaldehyde from these formaldehyde donating preservatives actually irritate the corneal nerves. So we want to avoid those things. I like the oil-based and preservative-free type cleansers. I think We Love Eyes has a nice product. It's preservative-free. There's some controversy about tea tree oil, but if you look at the scientific paper on that, at certain concentrations, the tea tree oil does not have a negative impact on the meibomian gland stem cell survival in cell culture. And when we're talking about wash-off formulas, the in vivo translation of that is much less likely to be of concern.
Wonderful, thank you.
That's good. This is why it's so good to have a panel of experts together to share everything. I'm sorry, I took my eye off the ball there. So another one for anybody, calcium channel blockers and ACE inhibitors, do they have any effect on dry eye? Maybe Laura?
Oh, sure, I'll take that. I answered that in the chat. So we had talked a bit earlier, one of your viewers had asked about diuretics. And yes, that can exacerbate dry eye. If you're in heart failure, do what your cardiologist tells you. But if we're talking about just blood pressure management, ask about things like calcium channel blockers and ACE inhibitors. Those are considered to be much more ocular surface and dry eye friendly.
Okay, thank you. If I've had laser drainage 13 years ago and have no tears and evaporation, is this going to get worse over the coming years? Some days I don't know what to do next. Nothing touches it. I've used Icurvis cyclosporin for 8 months and nothing. Anybody got any advice there? It's a hard one. Nick?
Difficult, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. we don't want it to get to that stage, but sometimes it gets there, and you should try your best with everything that's available.
Mm.
It's a very debilitating condition, and I have picked up research, I'm sure James is aware of this as well, that has integrated the look at clinical depression and severe dry eye. The two things do run sometimes hand in hand, which is unfortunate, obviously.
Yeah,
If I could just interject there, of course, you did see me spin my wheel, and there has just been a very powerful study associating depression with omega-3 deficiency. So this will be now used as an adjuvant therapy by our psychologists and psychiatrists. Once again, depression is a function perhaps of inflammation or lack of neurotransmitter production, and this is critically dependent on having essential nutrients such as omega-3s in the brain. Let's not forget that 1/3 of the brain is composed of DHA, which is an omega-3.
I'd like to add on to what Dr. Gross said. There's very much an interrelationship between several of the neurologic conditions in dry eye: migraine headache disorder, sleep disturbances, anxiety, depression. All of these things definitely have an interrelationship with dry eye. There was and I answered in the chat earlier, there was an interesting question about probiotics. There was a study in Hungary about 10 years ago published in the Ocular Surface Journal, my favorite journal. Like, that's like nerd awesomeness, right? Like, I like read that thing cover to cover every time it comes through. It's so much fun. But anyway, they looked at probiotics in patients with an irritable eye syndrome, and they defined that as cognitive fog or mood imbalance, dry eyes, and gut dysfunction. Well, within 30 days, using the probiotic lysate, the parts of the probiotic, there were global improvements in the subjective questionnaires for cognitive function and mood balance, dry eye, and gut function. And so that's the reason why we always recommend a green smoothie with just a sprinkle of a medical grade probiotic. You don't need a bunch of it. That'll actually constipate you. You don't want too much. It's the balance. And I put the recipe in the chat in there, but you can also, if you can't swallow a pill with your omega therapy, you can put it in your smoothie as well and disguise it with all the other yummy flavors.
Thanks, Dora. We are having loads and loads of questions about omega-3 and which brand, which ones do you recommend, which ones should we all buy? I think the fairest thing to do would just to ask everybody to give a balanced view. Dr. Gross, do you want to start off recommending which you suggest, and then I'll ask the others?
Well, the first thing I would not recommend would be over-the-counter products. When people go there, they're usually going for price, and we have no idea what's in those products. They're chemical forms. Unfortunately, we did take a look at some of the products that are in your Lloyd's pharmacies. I think that's familiar to you all. I tried to make a slide out of that at the last minute, but they're actually recommending a very inexpensive product, which is what we would call raw oil or native oil. It's in the triglyceride form because when you squeeze a fish, that's what comes out. But it also contains all the impurities that might be inside that fish. That is the cheapest form of fish oil, quote unquote, but it is not omega-3 therapy, and I'm sure we don't want our patients to glow in the dark from taking an omega-3 product that has mercury and PCBs and whatever. So, of course, I would recommend a pharmaceutically equivalent nutraceutical product. In the States, it would be PRN, physician recommended nutraceuticals, and this product that Scope uses is the same product as far as I am aware, and that is a pharmaceutically equivalent product that has a certificate of purity and 2 studies, including a meta-analysis for efficacy, as well as 2 patents, both for composition and for mechanism of action.
Thanks, Dr. Gross. Dr. T, which oils do you recommend?
I actually work in 2 different clinics, and we recommend 2 different omegas. But again, they are available in eye doctors' offices, and I absolutely don't recommend going to the pharmacy and picking one off the shelf in the extra large bottle so that you can get your money's worth. But the 2 that we recommend are physicians recommended nutraceuticals and Hydro Eye.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
And those are the only 2 products that have clinical research papers demonstrating a benefit for dry eye. So those are the only 2 I recommend for that very reason.
Okay, thanks. Nick?
You've caught me on the hop here because I'm not a nutritionist in that sense, but my understanding is we're stocking the one that Scope provide for us. It's just easier to keep a single source of supply.
Perfect. James, have you got any views on it?
Like Laura, we've got to go by the science. It's got to be the things that have been shown to have benefit because, again, as Michael Gross has shown, there are lots of different things out there where people have put something together and are pushing it for a particular treatment. So we've got to go with the scientific products.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca, have you got any comments on omega-3 oils?
Nope, gonna have to sidestep that one. So
That's fine. I just didn't want to exclude you.
thank you.
But I am going to bring you in because I know you wanted to answer my previous question about the lady that was suffering, and you wanted to try and help her on a sort of symptomatic level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think there were some complex medical issues going on, and obviously I can't talk to that. But whenever I'm talking with someone who's just really, really symptomatic or really uncomfortable all the time, my first go-to is physical barrier protection products because, I mean, this is the goggles and the glasses type things, because they're so reliable at getting symptoms under better control, getting us more comfortable, yet without interfering with any treatments that anyone's on. So it's like a parallel path that you're going down the medical path for the medical issues going on, but for the symptoms, you've got tools in your toolbox to get pain under control, which is so essential. I mean, especially if I'm not mistaken, the question came from someone who was really struggling at night in particular, and this is disrupting sleep, which is a huge problem in dry eye. If we can't get enough sleep, we're not getting our tear film kind of repaired overnight, and it's adding to our stress. And the more our pain gets ramped up, as we're talking about in the discussion earlier, that's going to interfere with everything. It makes it harder to make medical decisions. It makes it harder to comply with treatments. We have to have tools that are just designed to get our pain under control.
thanks, Laura. That's really, Rebecca, that's really valuable advice there. Well, I think this is the last one on my list. So unless anybody sends any in the next few minutes, I suffer from BB with apraxia. So having Botox A has really increased my dry eye problems. Can any of the panel help me with this? Any comments? Laura, you're nodding.
Yeah. Can you say that first part of the question again?
I have to confess that I'm not sure what it means. I'm not sure what BB means. So I suffer from BEB with apraxia. So having Botox A has really increased my symptoms, my dry eye symptoms.
Right. Benign essential blepharospasm
Thank
is what
you.
BEP
I should know that. It's been a long,
Yes.
long afternoon.
Right. So that's a tough situation, right? You need the Botox to control the involuntary blepharospasm, and yet it can, the Botox can be taken into the lacrimal gland and compromise lacrimal gland output. So in those situations, I would definitely pour out all of the supportive therapies, do your wonderful topical lubrications, consider the barrier functions with the scleral lens and glasses, some way to slow down the evaporative load since the meibum can't be efficiently pumped out of the meibomian glands. Future technologies include neural stimulation. We participated in the phase 3 FDA trials for eye tear, and there's an intranasal one coming in FDA review now in the US, but super exciting modality that helps to orchestrate a physiologically complete tear film, including meibum, including mucin from the goblet cells, including from the lacrimal fluid. So it's a tough situation, and I'm sorry that they're suffering with that, but there's a workaround. I think that's something as clinicians, we need to make sure we express to our patients that there's always a workaround. We can pivot and make up for these deficits wherever they may be.
Thanks, Laura. And thank you all. I think we really must stop there. We've gone on longer than we thought, but we tried so hard to answer all the questions from all our attendees. I hope everybody's enjoyed the afternoon, the morning, wherever you're watching it. Thank you for staying with us, Laura, as well. I know it's been an early start for many of you from the other side of the world. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of us. That's a huge thank you to all of us. All of you, you've been fantastic. You've given up your time, you've given up your Saturday, and I'm sure you've really helped just so many people by just being here and offering your advice. And I think Tom's going to hop back on and just say a few words before we finish.
Thank you, Mandy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think you've kind of done it. So just a massive thank you to all the speakers. If everyone can hold on for 60 seconds, if you have to go, there's no problem. But for the best international term, I think we had the Barcelona soccer team today here in terms of the dry eye world. So thank you so much to the speakers, to the panel. It's been an incredible session. The feedback coming through all day has been very, very strong. To our scope team, I think we've done an incredible job. Mandy, Amy, and everyone else in the background here answering all the questions. Hopefully you've got the answers that you've needed. So big thank you to you as well, everyone who's attended. We really appreciate your time on a Saturday. Just in terms of a few practical things, questions, we have info@scopeeyecare.com. We're going to put it in the chat right now. If you do have any questions for us, that's a good email address you can use. We're also going to send out a survey in the chat, but also in our follow-up as well. We're going to send out the whole recording of the whole event, but we're going to break it up into bite-sized chunks for you so it's easier to access. Give us a little bit of time on that, but hopefully we'll get it out to you as quick as we can. We would love your feedback on the session. This is the first of many, and we really would appreciate your feedback, whether it's good, whether it's constructive, whether it's just some random thoughts for us. So please do that if you get a chance. And as we think about moving forward, you know, we've said a little bit about scope today and the role that I think we can play here. We want to do more, we want to get better, we want to get stronger, and we want to help on this massive path of education around dry eyes. And Rebecca has told us very clearly today, it's not dry eyes, it's so much more than that, and we can't underestimate the impact that it's having. So ocular surface disease or ocular surface pain. And we will empower the ECPs, patients, all together, working together, and Scope will be very committed to that in the coming years. So a massive thank you to you all for coming today. Have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.